So, have you ever stopped to think about what classroom discipline is really all about? Is it just about keeping kids in line? Or is there something much, much deeper going on? Well, today we're going to dig into a really fascinating idea that classroom management is actually a crucial battleground for social justice. The article that sparked this whole explainer, it's from Nepal's Huluk and it kicks off with this really powerful idea. It says, classroom management isn't just some teacher's personal preference. No, it's a mirror, a deep reflection of a school's culture, its social hierarchy, and even national education policies. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at how the classroom can act as this kind of hidden mirror to the rest of society. Then, we'll get into what happens when discipline does more harm than good. After that, we're going to dig past the surface level stuff to find the real reasons for behavior. And finally, we'll map out a path for building a classroom that's truly just. So first up, how exactly does a classroom become a mirror for society? Well, the article looks at this through the lens of Nepal, which is this incredibly diverse nation. And it shows how these big, systemic biases can just seep right into schools, the very places that are supposed to give everyone an equal shot. I mean, think about the invisible forces at play here. A teacher might not even be aware of their biases. These deep-seated feelings about caste or language or social class. But the impact, it's huge. It chips away at inclusive education, it damages a student's confidence, and, as the source points out, it can literally push them to give up on school altogether. And that brings us to a really critical question. What happens when the methods we use to create order actually create chaos inside a student's mind? This next part looks at the pretty severe negative consequences of some all-too-common discipline tactics. And you can see right here, there's this huge gap between intent and impact. A teacher, right, they might just be trying to get some order in the classroom. But for the student, it feels like fear, like rejection. The teacher thinks they're motivating a kid to do better, but the kid just feels humiliated. It's this total disconnect that breeds mistrust and just shuts down any real chance of learning. And we're not talking about abstract ideas here. The source gets really specific, listing common tactics. Things like shaming a kid in front of everyone, isolating them in a corner, or even posting bad test scores for the whole class to see. Each one of these goes way beyond just correcting behavior. They're a direct hit to a student's dignity and self-worth, and they cause that fear and humiliation we were just talking about. Okay, so if punishments are the wrong tool for the job, what's the right one? Well, to answer that, we have to go deeper. We've got to look right past the disruptive behavior and start asking a much more fundamental question. And this right here, this is the real turning point. Is a student who's always talking in class just being bad, or is there maybe something else going on entirely? Let's peel back those layers. And wow, when you actually look deeper, the reasons can be completely different from what you'd expect. A student who isn't doing their homework might not be lazy, they might just be totally lost and confused. The one who's talking in class, maybe they're dealing with a ton of stress at home. It's a total shift in perspective, which leads to this huge problem with a one-size-fits-all approach. So, punishing all of these different situations with the same exact consequence, it just doesn't make any sense. The source makes a great point. It's like a doctor prescribing the same medicine for a headache, a broken leg, and the flu. You're not just failing to treat the real problem, you could actually be making things way, way worse. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. Now let's get into the solution. The article offers a really clear, constructive path forward, a way to create a classroom that isn't just orderly, but is actually truly just. So, the article lays out this 4-step framework. It starts with everything we just talked about, understanding those root causes, and then using positive alternatives. But step 3, this is fascinating. Implement data equity. What that means is schools actively tracking their own discipline data to see if some kids, maybe from certain backgrounds, are getting punished way more often. And it all wraps up with teacher self-reflection. So what does a positive alternative actually look like? The article gives this fantastic example called the Peace Corner, or Shanti Kulono in Nepali. And get this, it's not a punishment corner, it's not a timeout, it's a safe space where a student can choose to go
to calm down and get a handle on their emotions. It's teaching self-management, not just obedience through fear.
This chart really spells out the priorities. I mean, look at this. A whopping 70% of the focus is on understanding students and using those positive tools. That data and policy piece, that's there to make sure the system is being applied fairly to everyone. But the real engine for change here is empathy and constructive support. In that final 10%, that little slice for self-reflection, it might be the most powerful piece of all. The source argues this isn't a one-and-done training. It's a constant, daily practice of asking yourself the hard questions. Did I treat every single student equally today? Did my own biases pop up? This is how you drag those unconscious patterns we saw at the beginning out into the light, so you can actually fix them. But here's the thing. This whole massive shift in thinking, it can't just fall on one teacher's shoulders. The article makes it super clear. This is not an individual challenge. It is the shared responsibility of the entire school community. We're talking teachers, administrators, parents, all working together to build a system where every single student can actually thrive. And that leaves us with one final thought. We started with this idea that a classroom is a mirror of society. If that's really true, then changing the classroom might be one of the most powerful ways we have to change society itself. So, what kind of world do you want that mirror to reflect?